Well, I guess the Kamala Harris new campaign theme in the final days of the election should be taking out the garbage. Because that's what we all are. We're all just a bunch of garbage if we don't support her. Now, Trump out loud wondered whether or not that was worse than being a deplorable. I don't know. I think that it's Joe Biden. Oh, thank you, Joe. Oh, thank you, Joe. How is it that you defend Joe Biden calling millions of Americans garbage while at the same time ripping apart Donald Trump because some comedian that apparently Trump has never even met made a joke about the island of Puerto Rico at a rally? Not people of Puerto Rico, not Puerto Ricans, but the island, which incidentally, if you're not sure or if you're not aware of this, for some time now, environmental magazines have written about the trash problem in Puerto Rico, that they have a landfill problem, that over half the island is nothing but a trash landfill. This isn't something new. This isn't something that's made up. I think it's pretty interesting people that claim to be great champions and have a great love for Puerto Rico, apparently know less about the issues of Puerto Rico than some comedian does because they didn't really understand what he was referencing. They have a massive landfill problem in Puerto Rico, and a lot of it's from past hurricanes, but it's been exacerbated by their policies in dealing in with trash. But to spend, lead story for ever since that event took place. And of course they did it in order to distract from the event itself, although they still continue with the Nazi comparisons. So it's a combination of it was a Nazi rally and outrage because a comedian made a joke about the fact that Puerto Rico has a landfill problem. But then Joe Biden comes along and declares Americans, individual Americans, who are not planning on voting for Democrats for Kamala Harris are garbage. You know that he stepped in it because the Democrats are trying to backtrack on this. They're trying to rewrite it, the lengths at which some of the media outlets that are trying to get him or get Kamala Harris elected are going in order to try to convince you that's not what he said are pretty hilarious. Politico just straight up wrote a story in which they lied about what he said. They claimed that he was saying that about the rhetoric or something. They put it in quotes as if it was what he actually said. J.D. Vance retweeted out the quote from, or the piece in Politico in which they're just straight up lying. Biden had to issue a tweet or an X or whatever they're called, lying about what he said. The White House has issued a statement. They're all scrambling around trying to get you. Once again, it's the typical Democrat approach. You did not see what you thought you saw. What you heard, you did not actually hear. And what's great is this is over, well, actually, I say it's great. It's humorous because Kamala had her big closing argument last night, and what's actually getting attention and what people are going to be talking about today is not just the fact that Joe Biden declared Americans to be garbage who don't support Kamala Harris and support Donald Trump, but the reaction to it. So, as usual, something the media wants to go away. They're creating a situation in which it's going to be talked about more and more and more. I just love watching them. It's one of those, it's almost like Final Destination, where in an effort to avoid death, you end up walking into another death trap. Like, you just can't avoid it. Death is going to get you, even if you avoid it. And that is what the left tries to do with these catastrophes, many or large, in scale, that are created by their own, in this case, once again, Joe Biden. Every pivot they take in order to try to avoid it becoming an issue, they just walk themselves right into another issue of their own making. And I got to say, when Joe Biden's gone, some of these little things I certainly will miss. All right, so of course we've got some audio. Kamala Harris, her speech, the campaign of joy is telling you that if you don't vote for her, you will be round up in put in camps. Trump is going to send the military after you. It's because that's joy. That's that real uplifting message where you just walk out feeling good about the direction of things, right? If that's their joy, I don't know about you, but I don't want any of it. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a chance for isolated showers throughout the early morning and into the mid-afternoon, and then partly sunny skies with a high near 79. Tonight a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 53. For your Halloween, we'll see clouds through mid-morning and then gradually clearing into partly sunny skies with a high near 66. And on Friday, it's perfect happy hour weather, sunny skies with a high near 68.
Yeah, happy hour. It'll be a chance, just be one big garbage pile.
Yep.
All of us it'll be a night for garbage.
Yep.
At Retro Metro, happy hour
Trash
4 to
day.
6. So, yep, gonna be trash day at Retro Metro. So if you're garbage, or any of the others, yeah, I mean, we're all the same. We're deplorables. We're semi-fascist. We are Nazis. We are racist. We're homophobes. We're garbage.
We're sexist,
We're sexist. Yes,
misogynistic.
yes. We're all of these things. Oh, but now don't confuse that with the reality that Donald Trump is the one who's always calling people names. The difference is we actually are those things. So we deserve it. We have it coming. They're just evaluating the truth, whereas Donald Trump is throwing around unfounded names at people. So that's why he's wrong and they're right. So, yeah, we'll have a big trash party coming up at Retro Metro 4 to 6 this Friday for our happy hour. Now, we're going to get a little bit later in the program to what will be the leading conversation of the day, and that is Democrats desperately trying to clean up Joe Biden's comments that Trump voters are garbage, which this is what's... Now, just for a moment, think about this. This is so... It's like the multiverse. If you watch any of the Marvel movie, where sometimes things next to each other, they make no sense in context to one another. They're just so bizarre. These are people in the media, in the White House, that are going around. Not only do they not have a problem comparing Trump supporters to Nazis, they lead with that. The entire theme leading up to the Madison Square Garden rally wasn't the historic nature of Trump having a rally where, it's famous, Madison Square Garden, one of the most famous venues in the world for concerts and games and Democratic National Conventions. No, it was that, look how they all look like Nazis. They're all a bunch of Nazis. But when Biden says that we're garbage, all of a sudden they're trying to scramble around and convince you that he never said that. What is the moral compass of these people where they have no problem comparing Americans to Nazis, but they think or they see calling you garbage as something that might be harmful to their efforts? It really does begin to bring into focus how the left minimizes Nazism and Hitler. This is something they've been doing for some time by trying to compare Trump to Hitler and Trump supporters to Nazis, completely minimizing the atrocities of Hitler. But now apparently they think being garbage is worse than being a Nazi. That if you were a Nazi, well, you weren't garbage. Garbage is much worse. And I say that based off of their own reaction to Biden calling voters garbage versus calling voters Nazis. Nazis, they're fine with that. That is not offensive. That's not anything that is overboard, but garbage, like, oh boy, Biden really may have screwed us on this one. That's just a step too far. What moral compass do these people have? I continue to see stories, Newsweek, The Hill, and others, that keep referencing that Joe Biden appears to have called. What do you mean appears to have called? He's on video talking about Puerto Rico. He says the only garbage I see are Trump supporters. I mean, that's what he said. What appears as if maybe he said that. Okay. I would like every time that his characterization of Trump supporters being garbage, I would like for the media to say without evidence. I want some evidence that I'm garbage. Joe Rogan, so more information has come out about the lack of any sort of interview Kamala Harris is doing with Joe Rogan, and that is because she wants to be treated special. She wants to be treated differently, and she's demanding that he move his show to where she is and that he only do 1 hour instead of 3. And he's like, no. And he's not being a diva. She clearly is. But Joe Rogan in all of this, for a guy that the left has demonized, particularly during COVID, let's not forget how Democrats just railed on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was going to be responsible for murdering people. Joe Rogan should be taken off. I mean, there were petitions online being signed by Democrats that this guy needs to be taken off the quote airwaves of XM Sirius or not XM Sirius, but whatever. What platform is his podcast on? I forget. Is it Sirius XM?
Joe's?
Yeah, Joe Rogan. Is that where it resides?
I
I
mean,
think that's where. Well,
I'm
where
not sure. I
I
know.
thought that's where the contract they were talking about, like his huge contract. Well, anyway, there was an effort to have him removed.
Oh, he was. They tried to remove him off Spotify. I know that.
Spotify, maybe that's
Yes.
what. Yeah, Spotify. That's right. It was Spotify. Trying to remove him off that because he was enemy number one to health and science, and they were spreading lies about him taking horse versions of ivermectin and so forth. And so to a lot of Americans that didn't know any better, I'm not even talking left wingers, but just average Americans who would hear that disinformation thought this guy is some right-wing lunatic when he's not conservative at all, and he's just some radical crazy guy. And many of them are tuning in and they're like, wait, this guy's just normal. All of this, not that Joe Rogan in any way, shape, or form needs any help, but it helps him amongst a segment of the population that was misled into believing he was something that he wasn't. And whenever he revealed, and I think it was not irresponsible of him to reveal this. You've got people wondering, why are you not having Kamala on? And people saying, well, her people or Kamala decided not to come on, and he's just very transparent in saying, no, she didn't, her people didn't say she wouldn't come on. It's just they haven't really responded, and these were their conditions, and I said, I can't meet those conditions. I'm not going to pick up and move the show for her, particularly when she was just in Texas, misleading people into believing that she was going to have a Beyonce concert. That was what she decided to spend her time in Texas doing, as opposed to sitting down with Joe Rogan. J.D. Vance is going to be sitting down with Rogan to record a podcast. So that is the latest news regarding why it is that here's what I believe. Kamala Harris's people do not believe that she would be able to pull off an interview, that it would not go well for her. So they just create conditions to make it seem as if the reason it's not happening is because Joe Rogan wouldn't comply with what it was that was needed in order for her to do it. So they can claim, oh, no, we wanted to do it. We just weren't able to because of the timing, and we were more than willing to as long as he came to us, but he wouldn't do that, so really it wasn't our fault, it was his. That's what's going on here. It's saying no without saying no. I was really, really genuinely hoping, and I'm still going to hold out hope, that they decide we have no choice. We have to Hail Mary this thing and go on Joe Rogan. Really, really, really hope that happens. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I want to say hello to some of our listeners they've camped out overnight in Green Bay,
Oh.
Wisconsin. Trump's having a rally there today, and so I've been getting communications from one of our listeners in particular talking about. He said there's like 100 of them up there that have been essentially camping out. And so maybe after the event, perhaps tomorrow, we can get him on air to just talk about the event, the atmosphere of it, and everything. And I'm sure it'll just be an incredible event. I recommended. I don't know if there anyone who drives up. If you're driving up to Green Bay or you're already there and you're driving back, if you drive directly south, imagine if you drove instead of flying. Well, even if you flew, maybe flew out of Milwaukee. Anyway, there is it's an exit on the, I forget the exit, but there's it's been a while since I've been up there, but on the northern part of Sheboygan, on the eastern, make that western side of the highway, there's a big, like a Menards, but there's a place called Miesfeld's. And I'm telling you, that is a place to stop. I'm sure it's just as incredible as it was when I used to buy meats there. It's a marketplace, and they actually have, or they did. Again, I haven't been there in a while. Big, huge glass windows where you could actually see the sort of the butchering area and everything, which some people may not find appealing, but I always thought it was neat. And then you'll find what they call Sheboygan hard rolls. It is the way to eat a brat or a double brat. And they are almost like Kaiser rolls, but they're still a bit different. And I just don't, I wish you could get them around here. But if you've never had a brat or a double brat on a Sheboygan hard roll, I recommend that you stop by there and get yourself some, because your life will be changed forever. Now, I may be blowing it out of proportion, but maybe not at the same time.
I wonder if it's cold up there right now. Hopefully they don't have to stand in line forever.
Well, I think they've been there overnight outside. Well,
I feel like it would
but
be cold.
that's part of it. That's part of the Wisconsin experience. I bet it's probably, I don't know if it's that cold up there. I'm not sure what the situation is up there weather-wise.
Oh, it's not bad.
Okay.
It's 67.
Kamala, I'm not going to play any of the audio from her speech yesterday just because sometimes the sounds, it's just, I don't know, it's just bad just hearing her. But there were, as you can imagine, masquerading as nothing but joy, very dark, straight up lies about Trump and Trump supporters. The left has gotten so deranged. Congresswoman Dingell of, is it Michigan, I believe? Yes. She was on with Jake Tapper yesterday claiming that Donald Trump was going to, and that he has said this, open up camps, put Muslims and political opposition in camps. And Jake Tapper was like, what? And she's like, well, I don't really. She goes, oh, yeah, he's talking about this. He's saying, she goes, I can't cite the source right now. Oh, okay. This is what has become of the Democrat Party. You just throw whatever. Trump claims that he's going to choke children to death if he's president of the United States just because he can. He's telling people this at rallies. Oh, really? I don't have it right in front of me right now. But it's true. Okay. This is how unhinged and deranged they have become. Oh, but Donald Trump is the dishonest liar. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see isolated showers throughout the early morning and into mid-afternoon, and then partly sunny skies with a high near 79. Tonight, a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 53. For your Halloween, cloudy through mid-morning and then gradually clearing into partly sunny skies with a high near 66. And on Friday, sunny skies with a high near 68.
Breitbart, Joel Pollack at Breitbart listed off a number of the provable lies that Kamala Harris told during her inspiring, joy-filled speech that she gave yesterday, which was meant to be sort of her closing argument. Of course, good old Joe managed to, with his Americans who don't support him garbage, or who support Trump garbage comments, is distracted away from it, which actually it probably isn't that bad of a deal for her, to be honest with you, because it's not as if her messages are resonating anyhow. She claimed that one of the many claims she made is that Trump will, quote, that he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people. Now, every time, why when this claim is made, is it not printed or positioned as without evidence? What evidence do they have that this occurred? Have you ever seen audio or heard audio or seen a video of this speech that Trump gave in which he sent an armed insurrectionist group of individuals to storm the Capitol and overturn the election? Isn't that remarkable that when you stop to think about it, you're like, that's really weird that he would say that. The Democrats haven't used that in any campaign ads. All of the campaign ads they have, all of the claims that they make on social media, not one of them has incorporated video or audio of Trump doing this. Now, of course, we all know why. Because he did not do this. In fact, he did the opposite, and told anyone who was going to go to protest at the Capitol to do it peacefully and patriotically. That's why they don't air the that's why they don't present the audio, because he says the opposite of what they claim. Quote, he has an enemies list of people he intends to prosecute. Again, what evidence is there of this? This conspiracy theory that he has a list. Who's on this list? Where is this list? He says that one of his highest priorities is to set free the violent extremist who assaulted those law enforcement officers on January 6th. Again, can we have the audio of that? Can we see the quote in which he said that he was going to release those and pardon those who attacked law enforcement? What he has said is that he will have, on a case-by-case basis, these cases evaluated because of those individuals who weren't even in the Capitol and who are treated differently by the justice system because they aren't Joe Biden supporters. He has never said that he would pardon the individuals. In fact, if he were planning on pardoning those who committed the crimes of assaulting police officers, then he would have said, well, I'm going to pardon everyone. Why would he say that he's going to go case by case? What, to release only those who committed the crime and then those who did not do anything other than at the Capitol keep them in prison? That doesn't make sense. Last night, part of her speech full of joy, quote, Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. Again, can we have this audio? This is where you get, and it's genuine delusion. I actually received a letter from someone that's, started off. I get a lot of these letters and emails, and it's like, first, I want to congratulate you on your show. You can always tell whenever it's like, okay, here we go. And it was mentioning, I think that this does require just a little bit of focus. When Trump talked about the enemy within. And if it came to it, using National Guard and, God forbid, even the military. And when he was pressed on whom it was he was speaking, He mentioned people like Nancy Pelosi and explained the reason, whether one agrees or disagrees with him, wasn't because she disagrees with him, but it was because she, in her own words, failed to protect the Capitol because she refused the National Guard offering. I would argue that Milley would be one of these individuals as well, as somebody in the military who acknowledged during the investigation that he refused to comply with Trump's order to dispatch National Guard to the Capitol on January 6th. That was his testimony. He admitted that. And what is, but anyhow, so then what happens is you have these people that are delusional that translate that, where he talks about specific instances and specific people and what they did to, well, anyone who disagrees with him that's a citizen. I mean, how do you make that leap unless you're delusional? When it comes to this presentation that Donald Trump is some sort of crazed dictator because he would use the National Guard against citizens. What is the biggest complaint against Donald Trump when it comes to January 6th? The false claim that he did not use the National Guard against citizens in the Capitol on January 6th. This is how backwards and twisted the left gets themselves when you are not tethered to truth or reality in any way, shape, or form. Donald Trump was the one person who, days before January 6th, told his people, told the military, told the Pentagon, Milley being one of those individuals, we need to have the National Guard ready. He said, and Trump said, according to Milley in his testimony, active military if necessary. Do whatever it takes to make sure the Capitol is safe. And he just refused to follow orders. Yet the left wants him to go to prison because, among other things, they claim that he did not send out the National Guard fast enough. So you have the left here and the Democrats on one hand pitching a fit because Trump talks about the potential use of the National Guard to go after enemies within, while at the same time saying Trump should go to jail because he did not use the National Guard against the enemy within the Capitol on January 6th. Which is it? Is Trump a bad guy because he didn't use the National Guard fast enough? Or is he a bad guy because he talks about the use of the National Guard against the enemy within? Which, by the way, Nancy Pelosi herself has referred to members of Congress as enemies within. So this, as usual, for the left, is based off of nothing other than lies and contradictions and hypocrisy. Kamala also claims she'll always tell the truth, like Joe Biden's sharp as a tack. Once again, the lie about the national sales tax, which I want to talk a bit about that specifically as well. It would ban abortion nationwide. Straight up lie. I mean, just absolute straight up lie. Trump has no interest whatsoever. Zero interest in dealing with the issue of abortion during a second term. Nowhere has he claimed, nowhere has he even said anything that one could construe. This, again, if you notice, every time the left makes a claim in a campaign ad. See, here's the thing, if you notice. Ads against Kamala Harris, what are they filled with? They're filled with actual footage of Kamala Harris talking. So Kamala Harris wants taxpayers to pay for sex change operations for illegals that are in this country. Well, here's audio of her saying it. Kamala Harris says that a border wall is a vanity job, that it won't work. Here's audio of her saying it. The anti-Trump ads, Trump's going to ban abortions nationwide. You notice what's missing? Audio of him saying that. Donald Trump has an enemies list. Do you know what's missing? Donald Trump saying that. All of the claims that are made regarding Kamala Harris and things that she is positions she's taken are accompanied by her own words in her own voice. These claims that are made against Donald Trump, all of that is missing. It's as if it is a court case, and one side is constantly submitting into evidence Exhibit A, into evidence Exhibit B, into evidence Exhibit C, and the other side is just throwing out these arguments and these claims with no evidence whatsoever. In a situation like that, the side that keeps making allegations with absolutely no evidence submitted would have their case thrown out. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, refinancing, perhaps. Good time to do it, bad time to do it. Should you wait till after the election? I mean, that's just a week away. What difference will that make? I don't know. Do you know? You may think you know. The characters in their team can fill you in. And incidentally, it's not always going to be, this is what's going to happen. They will let you know about the unknowns as well. Sometimes understanding the unknowns and that they are unknowns is just as valuable as knowing the knowns, right? Having as much information as possible when it comes to that decision-making process is what you need. And a lot of places, they're not going to mess with you. They're not. You go into a lot of these big places and you have all these questions, and they're going to be like, listen, we just need to first and foremost know your Social Security number, your debt to income ratio, and see if you're worth even dealing with. If there's a chance they're going to make money off you before they're going to spend any time with you. That's not what you get with the characters in their team. Utilize their expertise. They are there to help. All of their contact information and additional info is at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Let's go to Corbin in Springfield. Corbin, welcome to the show. Corbin. Okay, Corbin seems to be gone. A couple other things that... So Kamala, she had her speech last night, and I know that many of you have heard her talk about, and the Democrats, this tax, a 20% sales tax. And what they're using the tariff issue, claiming that this is a tax. And their claim is based off this idea that it's going to trickle down to that, well, hey, if you put a tariff on a company from another country that is importing their product, then they're going to pass it on to you. Well, a couple of things. One, this administration has kept in place the tariffs from the Trump era. So if Trump's are just so bad, why did they keep them in place? Of all the things that this administration undid from the Trump years, that's something they left in place. Why is that? If they're so bad. Secondly, I do not disagree that tariffs under certain circumstances will result in an increased price of a product coming from overseas. In fact, that is oftentimes the purpose for a number of reasons. One, oftentimes these companies will find, hey, it'll be cheaper for us now to actually have these jobs in the United States, because then we won't have that 20% on there. Yes, we may have to pay people more, but when we do the math, we come out ahead. So it encourages some industries to actually move their facilities into the United States. It also, in some circumstances, because it will, if it isn't going to, the math work out that way, then industries that are already here in the U.S. but cannot compete with the low prices of these industries that are using slave labor, for example, in China, and then benefiting from that because of the low cost of things and then selling them here cheaper, that it will force them to raise the price, thereby giving American companies either an advantage or at least take away to some degree the advantage of those using slave labor and cheap labor. Tariffs are not a one-size-fits-all. It's going to impact every industry differently. But it is not untrue to say that in some circumstances, that is going to trickle down to the consumer. The problem is, this is the same campaign Kamala Harris who openly says she is going to jack up income tax on corporations here in the United States. That definitely will increase the cost of products. And the dishonesty we have in the media is when they will present the tariff as a tax on the consumer. And they will grill J.D. Vance, or they will grill Donald Trump, or they will grill Republicans who are talking about inflation with this particular fact and say, well, you talk about inflation, but, experts say that if you have tariffs, that increases the cost of making the product, and that's going to get passed on to the consumer, which is just going to raise prices even more. But when they're talking about Kamala Harris's threat to jack up, or her promise, taxes on corporations, they don't make the same point. Instead, they allow Kamala Harris to present that as somehow it's actually going to help working class people because it's really sticking it to the rich corporations who don't pay their fair share. That fair share she's talking about paying will be paid for by the consumer. It's yet another way, if Kamala Harris is elected president, she is going to make it more expensive, even more financially punishing to be an American. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Incidentally, speaking of things that raise the cost of the consumer, one of the amendments that you're going to be voting on, or many of you already have, in Missouri is whether or not to raise minimum wage 15 an hour and then, I guess, paid leave. That will do the same thing. And it will eliminate jobs, and it will suppress wages of those who are above entry-level wages. For the same reason that tariffs can have an impact on the cost of products, and for the same reason that jacking up the tax rate on businesses, as Kamala Harris plans on doing, will be something that the consumer bears. The same reason that when energy costs go up and when product costs go up. This is a concept that this is what should be taught in schools. It's this. You have a business, and in order to exist, you have to be making money. Just to keep the doors open. That's before, as the owner of the business, you even make any money. You have to pay the electric bill, you have to pay the water bill, you have to pay the gas bill. You have to pay your employees. Some instances, you pay their insurance. You have to pay your insurance. You have to pay insurance for your infrastructure. You have to pay for the products. If you are a grocery store or a restaurant or any sort of store in which people are buying products, you have to pay for those products. And so you, as a business, every time their products, because they all go through the same thing. This, by the way, is the trickle-down situation that Democrats like to pretend doesn't exist. They claim it's a theory. It's not a theory. It is a description of reality and what happens. So if I'm a grocery store and I sell bread, all of the things that I just described, which are just scratching the surface of costs with insurance and health insurance and gas prices and water prices, that all of that is also rolled into the cost of that bread that I have to purchase to turn around and sell, which is why their prices go up. News flash to Kamala Harris, that's not price gouging. That's reality. And one of the biggest expenses are employees. Where does all of the money come from if you're a business owner to pay the employees, to pay for the products, to pay for all of these things? It comes from the consumer. That's where the money comes from. So when those costs go up, the amount of money that you have coming in also has to go up, and that comes from the consumer. And raising minimum wage will have that same impact. Now, some people may claim it's worth it, but you can't deny that reality. And some jobs will be cut, entry-level jobs. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk a text line. If you can, you might share info on how to find out where to vote early. I found that the information was very vague. Still looking to find out where to vote early in Stone County. I just, without checking, I believe it would be safe to say that the county clerk's office in every county, or at least they'll be able to tell you, they're the ones that are in charge of that. Some areas, of course, Springfield has 2 locations just because of the volume of population in Greene County, but also up there in the sort of election center and around Boonville. But if you don't know for sure, it's going to be, I would imagine, unless just infrastructure-wise, county clerk's office can't accommodate it, to be somewhere in that vicinity. But that would be the office to reach out to. They're the ones in charge of all that and making those decisions. So that's what I would recommend. If you don't know, and if you are having a difficult time finding it, just get a hold of your county clerk.
Stone County?
Yes.
So a lot of county clerks don't actually have websites yet, and Stone County does. They are one of the very few that does, and they actually have a list of all of the places that you can go.
Are there more than one in Stone County?
I believe so. They've got like a little map that shows you.
For early voting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. So I will send that link to that person that texted in.
Okay.
And hopefully that'll help.
Yeah, someone else texted in a snapshot of the site. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. All right. There you have that, everyone. The opening of 2 of the major networks, of course, lead story was, thank you, Joe Biden, calling Trump supporters garbage, but the media, they're all in line in referring to it as appears to have called. So they're reporting on it, but they are making it sound as if, well, we don't really know if that's what he was talking about. They cannot help but discredit themselves. They can't help it. The culture. This is why just Jeff Bezos, owner of Washington Post, in his explanation for not having his paper endorse either candidate, which, let's be honest, this is about not endorsing her. And the presentation that people don't trust the media, so we need to start wearing our bias on our sleeve. That is not going to fix the problem. That is not going to fix the problem. This is a cultural problem. I don't know, and I'm talking about culturally within the media and within journalism schools. Obviously, this is a problem that's being taught. You don't spend years learning journalism at a university to all of a sudden on day one lose everything you know about journalism and start instead being a political activist because you got hired at the Washington Post or CNN or MSNBC. It's obvious that this approach is being crafted within our university systems. And it is not something that, CNN, when they got a new CEO sometime last year, they're like, we're going to take a new approach. We're going to be more objective. And you're not going to be able to do that with the people that are in there, because look what happens when you try to. Look what happened on MSNBC when they announced that they hired a Republican, Rona McDowell, the former head of the RNC. They all just said, we refuse to work with her.
She was there, like 2 days?
I don't even know that she went on the air. She may have gone on the air once. Yeah, and so then they fired her. She didn't do anything wrong, but it was because the culture of journalism at MSNBC is one of political activism for the left. I don't even know that there is any hope for the major networks. What I think it probably is going to, if it does change and we get back to an era in which the media is not simply a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party, it's going to be because of independent media that starts up, becomes overwhelmingly popular, and the others just die on the vine. I don't think that you can take a product like CNN or ABC, or NBC, any of these major networks, and change it because the people that are within it won't allow it. You'd have to completely get rid of virtually every single person that works within those institutions and replace them with people that increasingly don't exist, and that is objective journalists. Because again, at the university level, clearly they are training young people to be activists instead of journalists. And so it's going to take a couple of things. It's going to take, one, like I said, some of these independent, call them startups if you want, but that are dismissed by mainstream media. Usually they refer to unbiased media, or media that's more unbiased, as right wing. Not that there aren't right wing networks out there that are more biased towards the right, but if you are a completely objective news network or newspaper, the mainstream is going to see you as right wing because it's relative. And they're on the left. So anything like being in the middle, if you will, is going to be to their right. So they are going to see it as, I mean, look at how they behave if you don't actively support Kamala Harris. Some of them quit. You have some of these journalists resigning because the paper is saying we're not going to, at least so overtly, be political activists. I think also what I just believe the face of, if you want to call it journalism, is going to change. And what you're going to see is that the people are going to start gravitating more and more towards what we would call unconventional, quote, journalism. And that are people that are like podcasters, people like Joe Rogan. These individuals that don't see themselves as journalists, they didn't go to journalism school, they don't even have any interest in being journalists. They're just curious individuals that have a platform, and they take people who are in the news, in this context, of course, presidential candidates, and just want to sit down and pick their brain. And for their audience, their hope is that their audience walks away knowing more about that person, like who they really are and what they really believe, and how is it that, well, what about this, and that you say this, but I don't, here's my thought on this, and having real conversations, the things that 60 Minutes 40 years ago was known for. And it may never be called, quote, journalism, but to get back on the right track, and I think that people are going to naturally gravitate towards it. And again, it's why people like these podcasters are becoming increasingly popular, and why people are going to them to hear these interviews, because that's where they feel they are, and it's based off of experience, that they are going to get an unbiased Q&A with these people, that they are going to find out information that they're not finding out by listening to the, quote, professional journalist interviewing Donald Trump or interviewing Kamala Harris. And we, in all likelihood, I believe, are going to, as long as there is a segment of the population that still does want unvarnished truth, authenticity, non-agenda-driven interviews, we're going to end up in a country where these individuals that never even went to journalism school are the ones that a majority of people are going to get what journalism once provided in this country. And we're already seeing that shift occur. I want to play some audio of Kamala-friendly media outlets talking about the direction where the campaign is, the state of the campaign, including CNN panelists calling Harris's White House speech last night political malpractice. Again, she's her own worst enemy. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see isolated showers in the morning through mid-afternoon and then partly sunny skies with a high near 79. Tonight, a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 53. For your Halloween, cloudy through mid-morning and then gradually clearing up into partly sunny skies with a high near 66. And on Friday, perfect happy hour weather. Come out and see us at Retro Metro. Sunny skies with a high near 68.
Kamala Harris's big closing argument last night, backdrop by the Biden White House. Among other things, she spread conspiracy theories like Trump has an enemies list. He's going to lock up political opposition. Just more of the unhinged, crazed stuff. It's the sort of stuff that causes people with paranoid delusions to try to assassinate Donald Trump, and they know this. This is part of their goal. Because, let me tell you why I say this. Well, for a couple of reasons. One, because their supporters have acted on it already. So we have history. We have history of behavior of people who believe this stuff. In addition to it, it has become very clear in polling and even, networks like MSNBC and others have noted that that rhetoric is not helping her win over voters. For weeks now, they have been polling and asking people, what about the rhetoric that Trump is Hitler? What about the rhetoric that Trump is a dictator? And what they're finding is not only is that not helping, but it's hurting them to some degree because people see it as, and these are independent voters, as well as even some Democrat voters and, of course, Republican voters, that it's just political rhetoric, that it's this pandering and darkness. So if you know two things, that these messages of Trump as a dictator has inspired people to try to kill him. You also know that it is not helping you win over voters. In fact, it is causing you to potentially lose some. Why would you continue to do it? It obviously isn't because it's working with voters. So there's the other thing. This is CNN discussing Kamala's closing argument speech yesterday.
Skunk at the garden party here. But I think, I plan political events for a living, and I think this was political malpractice to put her in front of this White House. 68% of Americans think that the country's on the wrong track, and they blame Joe Biden, and increasingly they're blaming Kamala Harris. By standing in front of that White House tonight, she's going to own all 68% of that disapproval. And, I think it's a comfort reason. I think Northwest Washington, D.C. is about her best precinct in America. Everybody likes her there. She should have been in the Union Lodge in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh tonight. That would have done her a lot more good. And I also don't think that she did a lot for Nikki Haley voters. They've talked a lot this week about that they were going after Haley voters. And I think the Haley voters had to be looking at this as like a Christmas present they opened up and it was socks. They got nothing new from her, nothing that wasn't in her convention speech, frankly. And I don't think this moves the ball for her here at the end.
On a separate podcast, a former Obama advisor talking about the campaign and this continued effort to paint Trump support. Now, this is before Biden declared them all garbage. We were still on the semi-fascist, dictator, Nazis bandwagon. And this is a former Obama, during a podcast, advisor talking about that approach.
A little worried about the balance at the moment, and not because of like the message testing of ads. It's just because you have to ask yourself, what is breaking through in the closing days? And I do think it is primarily this conversation about Trump and fascism. And I think it's valuable to say the top people that worked for him don't trust him to be president again. I think that's alarming new information probably for a lot of people. But it's gotten mixed in with conversations about like praising Hitler's generals and things that I think just sound partisan and hyperbolic. And a lot do
you think the
Harris
campaign has done that though?
I think
because we're talking about like this is what I think it's unfair that it's like there's a lot of straw men running around here, which is like the Harris campaign's leaning in on fascism. No, they're not. Anderson Cooper asked her, "Do you think he's a fascist?" She said yes, right? Everything else they've done, their ads, everything else has been about what you said, Lovett, which is conveying what the threat means to people. And so, like, I don't know what else they would do at this point.
I'm not blaming anyone. I'm talking about the closing conversation that people are hearing. And I think it's overly tilted away from an economic message right now in ways that worry me, because every focus group and piece of polling we see shows you that voters primarily care about those issues. And there's a pretty easy ready-made answer for Trump, which is we saw him for 4 years. People don't think it was that bad. And so some of the language used to describe him can seem ridiculous to people. So that's where my anxiety comes from. And I agree with you, like, I'm not criticizing their strategy necessarily, but you get to decide whether you do a press avail or not. You get to take questions or not. You get to decide how you answer things and what you highlight or not. And so it does feel like they are leaning into this. There's a big speech Tuesday at the Ellipse where January 6th, started, right? That is going to lead to a conversation about the 2020 election and the insurrection and Trump's fascistic tendencies. And I'm a little worried about that emphasis when a lot of these undecided swing voters are like, I don't know, but gas was cheaper.
Now, I will say I think that it's pretty humorous. The podcaster said, well, I disagree. The Kamala camp, they're not leaning into this fascist stuff. I mean, yeah, when Anderson Cooper asked if Trump was a fascist, she said yes. But other than that, why do they continue to label Trump a dictator, Hitler, a fascist, if it's clear that it's not working? Well, what is it they're trying to get to work? See, the mistaken conversation here is evaluating this in the context of, is it working in order to win voters over? That's the mistake. That's not the point. If it was the point, they would have stopped doing it a long time ago, because everyone knows that's not working. These are Democrats that are saying this. It's being said on CNN. It's being said on podcasts by Obama people. It's being said even on MSNBC. While some of them are still continuing with it, when you have some of these more objective Democrats on, they're saying that messaging is not even if they believe it's true. It doesn't mean that they don't think that Trump supporters aren't Nazis or that Trump isn't a dictator, but there's a recognition that whether it's true or not, it isn't working. So why keep doing it? Unless you have another purpose, unless your motivation is to get yet another person to believe you to the point that they're going to save us all and try and assassinate him. There's no other logical explanation. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. We're going to have Trash Day, all us garbage folk, coming up Friday 4 to 6 at Retro Metro. It'll be last opportunity for all of the semi-fascist, Nazi, dictator-loving garbage to get together, to enjoy one another's company, to have some food, have some drinks. That'll be at Retro Metro 4 to 6 this Friday. A1 Custom Car Care. You got car care needs. You got A1 Custom Car Care. The check engine light comes on. Let me tell you one thing about cars. Problems don't fix themselves. If you're lucky, they just don't get any worse. That's best case scenario. Odds are, though, they will get worse. And not just that problem, but it can lead to another problem. You got this problem, then it becomes a bigger problem because it leads to that one. And it can even become catastrophic. And let me tell you, there is nothing worse. Well, there are some things worse. But there's no worse time, in the minds of most people, to find yourself broken down on the side of the road than when it is 15 degrees out and sleeting. Nobody wants to come help you. No one wants to come help you jumpstart the car. If they do, they're not going to be real happy about it. And you're not going to be happy either. So just make sure that check engine light, you get it checked out, or even before it comes on, you make sure that you're ready for winter. Next time you have your car in, your truck in, whatever it may be, ask them to check over the hoses, the fluids, the battery, see if it's ready for winter. A1 Custom Car Care. You can find them, KSGF.com, under Nick's endorsements.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we have a chance for isolated showers, mainly in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 79. A 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 53 tonight. For your Halloween, cloudy through mid-morning and then gradually clearing into partly sunny skies with a high near 66. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 68.
Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line message. Regarding the increasing recognition by Democrats that the Hitler talk is not working. And so the message on the text line said, well, what is the Harris campaign's alternative? Talk about policy. That'll be even worse. But I do think that the comment is correct. They are telling their next job not to miss next time. The modern-day Democrat Party is a demonic death cult. And this is the corner they've backed themselves into. There is still a level of denial. In the conversation that I played on that podcast with the former Obama advisor, saying that he was very worried about this continued talk of Trump being Hitler, not because, it inspires people to try to kill him, but because it isn't working campaign-wise for the Democrats. It's not helping them any. And this reference to the Trump response is that, well, the economy wasn't that bad under Trump. Things weren't that bad. That's not what the response is. People who are voting for Trump, it's because it was better. It was a lot better. It wasn't that it wasn't that bad. So there is still a level of denialism there from the left. But the biggest the biggest perceptual problem that these people who are supposed to be evaluating what's going on here regarding Kamala Harris is this. I don't believe there's anything she can do in order to make it better for her and her campaign. That isn't to say she can't win. But they're sitting around, the Democrats in particular, and so the answer is, well, she needs to talk more about policy. She has to some degree, but I'm going to go after businesses for price gouging. Well, that didn't work for a number of reasons. There is this failure, I think, to acknowledge that there probably isn't anything that she can do, because she has a combination of no ideas mixed in with bad ideas. She's not likable. The only background she has in the context of being president of the United States has been the last 4 years, which her messaging has been a combination of, I don't have anything to do with that whatsoever. In fact, she even said that most recently during an interview. We've got that audio. I'll try to play a little bit later. She's like, I'm not president. There's nothing I could do about this. A combination of that mixed in with her in the past talking about how she's the last person in the room with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden out there claiming that he didn't make a single decision without her being part of it. There is this belief that many Democrats have that there's somehow this magic answer that if she would just do this certain thing, that is going to make her likable, and that's going to make Americans want to vote for her. But that isn't dealing with reality. There really isn't anything that she can do because she's her. Her background is her. Her personality is her. Her track record is her. The things that she has claimed that she supports in the past, that's all her. That is who she is. And when she tries to be something else, that doesn't work either. They're holding out hope that there's some magical answer here that doesn't exist. I mean, sometimes there are you get a campaign and it's in a rut, and then they'll make a pivot and then the pivot works. I would argue for Donald Trump, the pivot was to be very disciplined, and I think the pivot came after the debate. In reality, that debate, I believed, changed the trajectory of both of these campaigns in a way that was good for Donald Trump. That campaign was a campaign in which Trump was goaded into talking about crowd sizes, talking about stolen elections, these things that, while they may be very true, and he may be on the side of the truth, it isn't what was effective for people. Meanwhile, because Kamala Harris was very disciplined and did not deviate from the memorized answers that she was given and was praised for her performance, that gave her campaign this false sense that, man, okay, she can do this thing. So they decided, let's get her out there more. Not that hiding her, continuing to hide her would have necessarily done any better, but they gave themselves this false sense of security. So that got her on this path. And then meanwhile, I think that because of that debate and because of what the recognition that it was undisciplined, there was a decision made, from now on, everything's discipline. It is going to be about border. It's going to be about economy. Not that he can't every once in a while make a reference to something that is off that messaging, but that's going to be the main theme. Combined with sitting down and doing some of these podcast interviews with people that want to have an actual conversation, not interview you, try to nail you, splice what you said apart and together in order to make it appear as if you said something you didn't say. And that pivot has been a pivot of success. So the pivots in a campaign can make a difference. The problem for Kamala Harris is there is no pivot in which she is going to be believed or likable, or her policies are going to be accepted. And this is the conundrum that the Democrats have found themselves in. And for them, it's whatever she's not doing at the moment, they tell themselves, well, if she was doing that, then this would be working. You know why the campaign started talking about Hitler and fascism? Because she spent a couple weeks out there talking about what she wanted to do policy-wise, and it didn't work. In fact, there was this story, I forget which, I cited it, I think it was earlier this week, about how it was the campaign had been talking about policy that wasn't working. And so, I think there were internal memos from that Future Forward PAC, it's a left-wing PAC, that somehow the New York Times got a hold of, and they were talking about what isn't working, and the Hitler thing isn't working, and the dictator thing isn't working. But they shifted to that because the talk of punishing companies for price gouging, and when they would be asked, well, who's price gouging? Well, they didn't have any answers for that. So the policy wasn't working. So let's go to the name calling. Well, the name calling, that's what she's doing now. So they all sit around and say, well, maybe if she was talking about policy, that's what she needs to do. There is audio. Yeah, I'll play it now here. We can hold off on the traffic. Now, here's audio. This has really got a sting. This is a conversation with, among other, between two MSNBC. This is MSNBC. And this is the Bulwark managing editor, Sam Stein, having a conversation with the host of one of the other shows on MSNBC.
They're in this with Nevada, as you just said, Georgia. And the blue wall still seems to be the best.
Yeah, I keep talking to people, and it's really the blue wall. Honestly, it's kind of funny because this was the Biden path, and it's probably going to be her path if she can pull it off. People are comfortable about Michigan and Michigan and Wisconsin. Look at me, I'm too tired. And then Pennsylvania, of course, is the big one. That's their comfort zone. Obviously, if they can pick off a Georgia or North Carolina, that'd be great. But everything with the Omaha district in Nebraska, and you get to 270. And so it is a bit poetic that she could end up getting there through the Biden path.
Yeah, I'm actually traveling with President Biden later today. He's got an infrastructure event in Baltimore. But you have to wonder.
Could have stuck with Joe after all.
Well, I was going to say, I have talked to someone on the West Wing who note that her most likely path is the blue wall. And what is her closing argument? Democracy.
Why even change in midstream? They should have just stuck with the guy.
Ooh, boy. How much that stings. Coming up, Kamala Harris apparently surrendering North Carolina, withdrawing nearly $2 million in an ad spend, which is, of course, signaling that they've given up that state and they're trying to refocus some of these dollars into others. These are not moves of a confident campaign. Democrat presidential nominee Vice President Kamala Harris waving the white flag in North Carolina, surrendering the state to Trump as her campaign withdraws nearly $2 million in planned ad buys from television stations statewide 1 week before the election. The more than $1.7 million in canceled ad buys by Harris's campaign in North Carolina suggests that her team believes, given polling data and early voting data, that the Tar Heel state is no longer in play for her. Trump senior campaign advisor Chris LaCivita jumped on the news yesterday morning, celebrating Harris's team giving up the state a week before the election. More than 3 million people have already voted in early voting in North Carolina, which can be done via mail-in absentee ballot or via in-person locations around the state. Republicans, interestingly, for the first time ever, actually lead the early vote. North Carolina provides the partisan breakdown and demographic data on early voters in the state, something that they have done now for more than a week. The remarkable, consistent GOP lead, shocking political observers, comes as demographic data also suggests Democrats face serious issues in competing at the top of the ticket in the state. Black voter turnout is down approximately 3% from 2020, and about 1% more men than women as compared to 2020 are voting in the state. The strong headwinds against Harris in North Carolina were proving to be a major issue for her in the closing days of the campaign, as she's set to flip the only battleground state of 7 nationwide that Trump won in 2020. For comparison purposes, again, Trump won North Carolina in 2020, and the electorate per the early voting data based on millions of votes cast so far suggests a much more GOP-friendly electorate even than then. Now, here's why this is potentially signaling something very hopeful. The Republicans have been undoubtedly successful in getting voters to vote early. And it's not simply about voting early for the sake of voting early, but it's about a couple of other things, then being able to evaluate where resources are going, because when you vote, that access is public information. And so they're able to see who who didn't vote, and then they can, when they're going door to door, go to the doors of people who haven't voted, hit those people. So they are able to better focus their manpower and their dollars. So there's that benefit, and it also allows them to focus on what's called the low propensity voters. So these are people that they believe, for a variety of different reasons, are going to vote for Trump, but they're going to vote if they vote, they're going to vote for Trump. So they really want to focus and get those people out. The information in Pennsylvania has shown that thus far 20% of early Republican voters are first-time voters. Now that is amazing news for Republicans, because the worry is, if you want to call it a worry, or the unknown is, well, are these people just shifting? We talk about it, okay, it's great news that Republicans are getting out and voting early because that was the goal, but are these simply people that would have voted anyhow? They're just shifting their vote from election day to early voting. And when you see that, as of just in the last couple of days, 20% of those who have, that are registered as Republicans in Pennsylvania that voted early have never voted before, that is a very good sign. So knowing that, and then seeing that the Kamala Harris campaign, they know something, or they believe something is going on there, to where they are, by their actions, demonstrating they think that they've lost North Carolina. Because the only other reason you would pull money out of North Carolina is if you were so far ahead, you weren't worried about losing it. So you're like, okay, well, we need to put these dollars elsewhere, in areas that are more important. North Carolina is very important, and what is being seen in the polls is that it's very, very close. So the fact that they would pull money out of a state that is important and that's very close tells us that they believe something's going on here that suggests they cannot win that state. And that also is very good news for the Trump campaign and for America, of course. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. The upcoming hour will have some of the media's attempt to desperately save Kamala Harris from Joe Biden's declaration that Trump supporters are garbage. This is, as one could expect, bringing up memories of Hillary Clinton calling Trump supporters a basket of deplorables that are irredeemable. And what many people saw that as a real turning point in the campaign. And the reaction to it all, just amongst Americans, I think, is also very telling. And once again, Trump supporters are they're much more emotionally healthy. You know what the response is for the most, I mean, overall Trump supporters, and it's joking about, well, I guess I'm garbage. Sarah was reading through some of the comments that a lot of you as listeners are making on social media about it's trash day. I guess I got to take myself out to the curb, joking about it. Not that it isn't recognized as being a serious situation, but you look at the emotional stability of the left and things that Trump hasn't even ever said. Again, they make these claims about, well, he's got an enemies list and he's gonna put political opposition in jail. All right, well, let's have the audio of him saying it. Well, it doesn't really exist. Oh, okay. They still go hysterical over it. I mean, they scream at the sky. They break down crying. They talk, they get themselves into such hysterics that they drive themselves into therapy over a scenario that doesn't even really exist. Meanwhile, and by the way, I don't even know if Trump has ever, now he's name-called people who have name-called him. He gets labeled as someone that's mean and nasty and divisive, and he name-calls, and he does name-call when somebody name-calls him. An individual, a person attacks him personally. Some would argue he shouldn't do that. Okay, fine. But when he's doing that, okay, Rosie O'Donnell said something bad about him. He said something bad about her. Megyn Kelly attacked him. He attacked her. You just go through the list. But what you don't have is audio of Donald Trump trashing the tens of millions of people who don't support him. You don't have audio of Donald Trump that's out there saying you're a Nazi if you support, or you're garbage if you support Kamala Harris. And there's always this instinct to say, not that I've heard every bit of audio, but don't you imagine if it exists? It would be everywhere. It would be the lead story. It would be in campaign ads. This is a very clear distinction between the two sides. Yes, Donald Trump name calls. Donald Trump says mean things. It is always in response to someone, an individual that has attacked him. So he lobs it back. What we have from the Democrats is the mass characterization of every citizen that doesn't agree with them. Barack Obama, bitter clingers. Hillary Clinton, basket of deplorables. Kamala Harris, Nazis. Joe Biden, semi-fascist and, as of yesterday, garbage. Entire groups of people, citizens, moms, dads, college students. As Marco Rubio noted, Marco Rubio had read, he was introducing Trump at an event yesterday and got wind of Biden declaring that Trump supporters are garbage. And so somebody handed him, I guess, the quote, and he read it, and Trump was hearing it for the first time. And Marco Rubio made a really good point. He says, he's talking about you. He's talking about nurses. He's talking about teachers. Anyone who supports Donald Trump, to him, is garbage. And this, we're told, is the party of unification. This, we're told, is when Kamala Harris, echoing what Joe Biden said, well, I'll be a president for everyone. Oh, really? You have an interesting way of demonstrating that. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Calling all garbage. We're going to be having a happy hour at Retro Metro Friday. Last chance for the garbage. Maybe we'll have enough of us there. We'll qualify as a landfill.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, collectively, that's probably what, to the Democrats, red states are just landfills because we're all garbage. According to Joe Biden, we'll be having that happy hour at Retro Metro 4 to 6. Now, many of you, in fact, as I've contacted some of our Lunch Bunch winners, and the last winner that I contacted said, oh, I thought they weren't doing lunch any longer. Yes, Retro Metro is exclusively dinner, but for our Lunch Bunch. It is the only way that you can have lunch at Retro Metro is to have Lunch Bunch with us. We have the place to ourselves. It's a private lunch because they are closed during that period of time other than our Lunch Bunches on Wednesday. So if you've signed up already, you may still win. And if you haven't signed up in order to win Lunch Bunch and then you've thought, well, they're closed for lunch now, so there's no point. There is. In fact, it's even more exclusive because this is the only way you can have lunch there. We're having lunch there today, as a matter of fact. That's all I have to say about that.
There you go.
That is all I have to say.
You can register at ksgf.com.
There you go. While you're over there, incidentally, there's still, as we are in autumn, festivals going on in the area. You can check out the Fall Festivals of the Ozark page. That's sponsored by Dogwood Canyon. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447-KSGF. The Democrats they have become like Chinese handcuffs. And do you know, I'm sure I've asked you this before, Sarah, do you know what Chinese handcuffs are? Okay, so if you don't know what Chinese handcuffs are, they were made of, it's almost like bamboo. I don't know if it's actual bamboo, but some sort of fibered material similar to bamboo, and it's weaved together, and it looks like it's a tube, and you put your fingers in it and touch your fingers, and then when you try to pull them out, it constricts, and so you can't get them out. And the thing about Chinese handcuffs, which I don't know, is that racist now? I have no idea. I always wondered, is this really what handcuffs are like in China? When I was a kid, it's like, is this how they handcuff people in China? Like if they take you to jail, they're like, put your fingers in here. The thing about them is the harder that you try to pull your fingers out, the tighter it restricts. Democrats, in their final arguments as to why you should support them instead of Donald Trump, are like the Chinese handcuffs. The more that they try to convince you that you should not vote for Donald Trump, the more that they are losing. And they just, because it's like every new argument they make, they have to step it up from the last one in terms of over-the-top craziness. I was having a discussion last night and say, hey, have you heard about this bombshell report? Supposedly it involves media about Donald Trump, and it's supposed to be the big one that they're going to put out, so close to the campaign that there's no time to refute it. And I'm not saying this to be rhetorical, I don't know what they could possibly accuse Trump of at this point that people would believe to the point that they would decide not to vote for him. And part of that is because they've accused him of everything under the sun. And so their approach is, okay, well, what's worse than this? If this did not work, then what is worse than this? And they're at the point where calling him Hitler isn't working. So I'm like, what can they do? Here is to potentially, this is just a demonstration of that hysteria. Representative, this is Michigan, Debbie Dingell. She's on CNN with Jake Tapper. I kid you not. This is unedited. This is not AI. This is part of the conversation that they had on CNN yesterday or the day before.
And the Arab American community needs to be reminded and cannot forget. He wants to ban Muslims, he wants to deport Muslims, and he wants to start internment camps. And that's what we are busy talking to every voter. He's telling you what he's going to do. Believe him.
Internment camps?
Yes. They just talked internment camps. You know what, Jake? You may have to visit me in one. I get worried enough when he talks about what he's going to do to his political enemies. But he has talked about them in this with different groups of people.
Well, I've heard him talking about rounding up undocumented migrants, and obviously for that you would need some sort of camp. But what do you mean internment camps for Muslims and Arabs?
He has spoken about that in different audiences. I don't have the exact citation right here, but I'll find it for you.
That's because it's not true. This is so it has gotten to the point this is a member of Congress, a sitting member of Congress on television. I mean, even Jake Tapper, he's playing dumb. He knows she's lying about this, obviously, but he's playing dumb like, internment camps? Like, what? She's, oh, yeah, he's telling people this. So Donald Trump is now going to set up internment camps and round up all Muslims in this country and put them in internment camps because clearly, even if he wanted to do that, he'd be able to do that, right? I mean, yes, he would just be able to do that.
Without evidence on that one.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Part of course, just even breaking this down is insanity. Her, aside from just the absurdity of the claim, the mistake she makes is not just claiming he's going to do it, but that he's going around telling people he's going to do this. He's telling groups of people he's going to do this. What groups is he telling this to? Like, what audience that Trump has before him at these rallies does he think, oh, this is a group of people that I need to win over, and the way to win over their votes is to tell them that I'm going to round up all Muslims. First off, we're going to build internment camps across this country. And then we're going to round up all Muslims and have them put in the internment camp. And also my political opposition, because Debbie Dingell here is a member of Congress, and she was not being facetious. She was not being sarcastic, that she fears that she may be put in one too. So I guess all Democrats will be put in them as well, or at least some, the special ones. And he apparently, according to her, is going around telling people this. Now, much like his demand that an armed insurrection overthrow the government on January 6th. There's no audio of this. There's no video of this. There are no witnesses that have actually seen it occur, even though he is claiming that he's going to do this in front of, not just, she said, in front of groups. This has, according to her, happened on numerous occasions. And do you think CNN, these are networks that fact-check Trump left and right. These are networks that claim that Trump is divisive. Here is a sitting member of Congress, clearly lying, telling, and her goal is obviously to make people believe this, that Donald Trump is that he's going around telling people, campaigning on rounding up Muslims. Oh, so I can't cite the source, but I'll get that to you. Oh, yes, I'm sure she will. And we'll hold our breath while Jake Tapper holds her to account on that. These people really are despicable. These are despicable human beings. It's one thing to be like, my opponent's going to raise taxes, or my opponent says that, they're going to cut the deficit, but they're lying. But when you run around telling people, your supporters, a couple of whom already have tried to murder Trump, that he is going around telling people that he's going to round up Muslims, put them in internment camps. I don't know, is there anything more hysterically dangerous that these people can say? This is a member of Congress. This is the sort of thing that you expect some left-wing psychotic individual who is middle-aged, living in his parents' basement, suffers from grand delusions, would be writing on Reddit at 3 a.m. while hopped up on Red Bull. And in a reflection of where we are today, that apparently is a mirror image of some Democrat members of Congress. We got weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we have a chance for isolated showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 79. A 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 53 tonight. For your Halloween, cloudy through mid-morning and then gradually clearing into partly sunny skies with a high near 66. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 68.
Okay. Coming up, we've got the audio of what the media is describing as Joe Biden appearing to call Trump supporters garbage and the frantic backpedaling. By the way, Kamala Harris still hasn't denounced it. But when you claim that people who support Trump are Nazis, it does seem a little weird to then be, I don't know, expected to denounce them being called garbage. I mean, on the hierarchy of names, this is part of what, to me, is just so hilarious about all of this, that the media has no trouble whatsoever with Trump supporters being called semi-fascists or Nazis. But Biden then says they're garbage, which to me seems like that's a little less, horrible. But that, all of these stories about, oh, he said this and this is going to derail things, and Kamala Harris, don't get me wrong, he's wrong for saying it, especially if you're the current president of the United States, to say that about Americans. I mean, think about that for a moment. He is the president of the United States of America, and he claims that tens of millions of Americans are garbage. I mean, that is such a profoundly insane thing to think about. So, he's wrong for it, but it's just so weird to me that the media seems to recognize that that is a problem for the Harris campaign, but calling Trump supporters Nazis isn't. And before Joe Biden seeming, in quotes, to call Trump supporters garbage. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, it looks like we are going to finally see a good amount of rain hit the Ozarks in the next 24 hours.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I know. Show me state here. This evening, if you are sitting in your living room and you do notice any yellowing on your ceiling or full-blown leaks, I know the name of a great roofing company, and that is the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they do free roof inspections, so you are not out anything whenever you call them out to your home. And their roof inspections, they are very thorough. They take tons of photos and videos to show you exactly what they are seeing. They also get into your attic and check your decking as well. They also offer discounts to our military and our first responders on new roof installs, and they also work through that insurance process without making you sign anything. So for all of your roofing needs, whether you need a simple roof repair, a whole new roof, or even commercial roofing, give the Pyramid team a call today. Now you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Ooh, text forward. I heard President Trump just resigned at McDonald's to accept a shift at Waste Management. Can anyone confirm? Hey, you know, who knew? I know a number of listeners that work in waste management. In fact, he and his wife come on some of the great escapes. I wonder if they knew all this time they've been working with Trump supporters. They've been surrounded by Trump supporters. Garbage. This is Joe Biden yesterday.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
All right, so he says the only garbage I see around there are his supporters. Here's what Donald Trump had to say about the characterization of Trump supporters as being garbage.
Remember Hillary? She said deplorable, and then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable. That didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right? But he doesn't know. You have to please forgive him. Please forgive him, for he not knoweth what he said. Terrible to say a thing like that, but he really doesn't know. Honestly, he doesn't. And I'm convinced that he likes me more than he likes Kamala.
Then Joe Biden was forced, or someone on his behalf, to put a statement on X. Quote, earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump supporters at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. No, he did not say the rhetoric. He very specifically said his supporters. His supporters is what Joe Biden said. The only garbage I see are his supporters. He did not say the only garbage I hear is the rhetoric coming from his supporters. Meanwhile, you have the White House clarifying what he meant by garbage. Aides at the White House insisting Biden's comment that the only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters doesn't reference Trump's supporters, but comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, however you pronounce his name. So Joe Biden, the White House itself cannot get the lies straight. The White House is claiming, no, Biden, when he said his supporters, the only garbage I see floating around out there are his supporters, he meant this comedian. Joe Biden, however, claims that he wasn't talking about anyone. He was talking about rhetoric of his supporters. Not even the rhetoric of the comedian, but of his supporters. Which, incidentally, the comedian himself wasn't talking about Puerto Rican people. He was talking about the island. Which, if you know anything about Puerto Rico, well prior to this, there have been numerous stories, particularly environmental pieces, written about the landfill problem with Puerto Rico and how essentially it's just one giant landfill. This is a problem they've been dealing with for a very long time. So this wasn't even about people that are Puerto Rican. He was talking about the infrastructure, the island of Puerto Rico. As opposed to Joe Biden, who was talking about people when he called Americans garbage who support Donald Trump. Then you have these different outlets. The Hill. Biden appears to call Trump supporters garbage. I saw it on the Today Show. Biden appears. It's all appears. So, it's open for interpretation. Politico flat out just lied in a posting that was shared by J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance asking, does Politico have an ounce of integrity? Will they correct this obvious falsehood? And so what was written by Politico was a comedian who appeared ahead of Trump at Madison Square Garden in New York City on Sunday called the American territory an island of garbage. Biden, in a Zoom call with the organization Vote Latino, said the only garbage was the hatred of Trump supporters who said such things about American citizens. And they put hatred in quote. That, of course, is also not what Joe Biden was saying. This is how you know that they are very concerned about the impact this is going to have, because they're scrambling to make sure that people do not believe their own ears. Former CNN political commentator Chris Kaliza, who hates Trump and Trump supporters, said that President Joe Biden's comments branding supporters of Donald Trump garbage is a, quote, absolute nightmare for the presidential campaign of Vice President Harris. Quote, Biden's verbal gaffe, if that's what it was, that's what he wrote, is an absolute nightmare for the Harris campaign. This is getting more attention than Harris's closing argument speech, he wrote on X. A longtime Washington establishment media insider referencing the incendiary comments made by Biden on Tuesday, in which the outgoing president remarked, the only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. Trump, of course, calling on supporters to forgive Biden in a show of unity, noting that he probably doesn't even know what he's saying. I thought here's an interesting piece. We got to take a break. And while I get to that, I'll decide during the break. All right, so we've got a traffic update coming up. Also, a look at the weather, plus more. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. And we are, of course, streaming YouTube. You can find us there, video as well as audio. That's sponsored by Custom Shade Window Tinting, powered by 3M Window Film. We've got, let's see, what was it Tom Martz said? Garbage Hour. We got Garbage Hour coming up Friday at Retro Metro, where all of us garbage can get together, have some drinks, have some food, enjoy one another's garbage company. That will be 4 to 6 at Retro Metro. Emily Johnson, I like this review from Joanne. Recently, we found ourselves with residential property to sell in order to settle an estate. We chose Emily to represent us after receiving advice from a family member and doing research. We were impressed with her knowledge of the market and process, resourcefulness, honesty, negotiation skills, and much more. We accepted an offer after 2.5 days of showing, closed the sale 9 days later. We recommend Emily without any reservation. I think that's a fresh one. I don't believe I've shared that review, but it's consistent in terms of the level of satisfaction and the details as to why the experience was premium when it comes to any sort of buying or selling homes. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Someone texted in saying that the app stopped playing the show, but I just pulled it. Well, someone let's see. Yeah, someone else said I'm not receiving the streaming from you guys. Went down on 8:15, but I just pulled it up on my app, so I don't know if maybe if it started again, whatever the problem was, because obviously something happened because 2 different people had said that the app wasn't streaming, but I just pulled it up during the break, and I had something there. So maybe it's just back up. I don't know. Thought I would share that information.
I'll message them, and then I'll message IT and see if I can figure out what's going on. The first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we do have a chance for isolated showers this afternoon, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 79. A 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 53 this evening. Halloween, cloudy through mid-morning and then gradually clearing up into partly sunny skies with a high near 66, and trash day Friday, sunny with a high near 68.
There was a who was it? What was it? I don't recall if it was someone that I was listening to or a piece that I was reading, but it was from someone, man, I wish I could remember, who was left-wing and they began to start opening their eyes to what was going on. And one of the things that he had noted was that every criticism of Donald Trump was like, did you hear what he said? Did you hear what Trump said? This was during the Trump years in particular when he was president. Can you believe what Trump said? Said every day at work it was that. The people, he was a journalist, I believe, with one of the main outlets. And he said that's all that it was. Did you hear what Trump tweeted? Did you hear what Trump said? And he said more than half the time it turns out that they were responding to something somebody said Trump said, but he never actually said it. And when you listen to like the thing with Puerto Rico, which Trump never even said, a comedian joking about the landfill problems that Puerto Rico has, and they just all go nuts. They just run around like a bunch of 8-year-olds trying to cause problems. Did you hear what they said? Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said? Apparently, the latest, did you hear what he said, or did you hear what was said? Trump hasn't denounced it. Trump hasn't denounced it. It doesn't seem to be helping the Kamala Harris campaign any. The Washington Examiner reporting that the flippant joke about Puerto Rico told by a comedian at former President Donald Trump's Madison Square Garden rally has not changed any votes in the battleground of Pennsylvania despite hours of anti-Trump media and Harris campaign attacks. Signal pollster Brent Buchanan said that the outfit's polling of Pennsylvania since the Sunday event showed no change in the Hispanic vote. Quote, Puerto Ricans are one of the least Republican groups, so these comments are less likely to flip votes from Trump than they are to potentially activate votes against him, he said in the morning memo. However, he added, our Pennsylvania data shows zero change among Hispanics in the presidential race in the state the past few days. The media and the Harris campaign, desperate for a vote-moving issue in the final weeks before Election Day, have seized on the comment from comedian Tony Hinchcliffe that the U.S. territory is a, quote, floating island of garbage. CNN even went looking for Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania to see if this had changed their votes, but that didn't work out for them. CNN asking Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania about the joke, only to find out it wasn't working. There was one bit of audio. I don't even know. I may actually have saved this audio here. No, I don't think I did. But CNN had asked, a Puerto Rican voter in Pennsylvania, does this affect your vote? And he's just like, no. It's like, why would this affect my vote? There's a quick opinion piece in the Daily Caller from Justin Peterson, who served as a member of Puerto Rico's Financial Oversight Board from 2020 to 2023. And he wrote, in the autumn of 2020, I was appointed by former President Donald Trump to the Financial Oversight Management Board, FOMB, for Puerto Rico. Congress created that board in 2016 to facilitate the restructuring of the island's mountain of debt and to institute desperately needed financial controls and reforms. Despite having accumulated more than a decade of professional experience working in Puerto Rico prior to my appointment, during my 3-year term on the board, I learned so much more about the important part of America, or about this important part of America. Here's what I can personally attest to. No president has done more for Puerto Rico than President Trump. Following the devastation of Hurricane Maria, which struck the island in 2019, the Trump administration swung into action. Its response was swift, historic, and unrelenting, continuing until literally days before Trump left the White House in January of 2021. Under his leadership, thousands of federal employees were deployed to the island to assist with recovery efforts, which included the longest sustained air mission of food and water delivery and largest sea bridge operation to that point in FEMA history. Now, you juxtapose that reality to the rhetoric from the Kamala Harris campaign that Trump blocked aid from going to Puerto Rico. This is the lie they're telling. That he blocked aid from going to Puerto Rico, when in fact the reality was it was the single longest sustained air mission of food and water delivery and largest sea bridge operation in FEMA's history. Not just to Puerto Rico, to anywhere. In the immediate aftermath of the disaster, President Trump authorized billions for Puerto Rico's rebuilding and recovery. The specifics included $9.6 billion to repair and rebuild Puerto Rico's electrical grid, $2 billion to the Puerto Rico Department of Education for the restoration of school buildings and facilities, 100% funding of Puerto Rico's emergency work cost share for nearly a year after the storm, the third longest ever granted by any president. In all, more than $40 billion in aid and assistance from the Trump administration to the people of Puerto Rico. By the way, you compare that to this administration's response to the hurricane that devastated, among other states, significant portions of North Carolina. Predictably, the national media ignored all of these facts and has since then shamelessly and falsely portrayed President Trump as ineffective and uncaring about Puerto Rico. In fact, much of the federal aid made available by Trump has yet to be utilized due to the Biden administration's failure to hold the Financial Oversight Board and Puerto Rico's current government accountable to operationalizing the funds. To make matters worse, 8 years after Congress afforded the country bankruptcy relief, as it had accumulated debts totaling more than $70 billion, Puerto Rico's power utility, PREPA, remains in bankruptcy while spending hundreds of millions on law firms and consultants who are financially incentivized to perpetuate the status quo. So, in other words, to make sure the problem continues to exist. The $9.6 billion authorized by Trump to rebuild PREPA's grid has largely, under Biden, been unspent, subjecting the more than 3 million Americans who reside there to frequent blackouts and outages. Vice President Harris unveiled a plan for Puerto Rico this week. Unfortunately, it contains more of the same vapid claims and promises centered around clean energy, which the Biden administration has squandered billions on with little to show for it. The Harris plan does nothing to address the key obstacles to Puerto Rico's growth outlook, including ending bankruptcy, which would catalyze outside investments and the construction of a 21st century business-sustaining energy infrastructure for Puerto Rico, not built on green hype, but on affordable, reliable American natural gas. Having served as a Trump-appointed member of Puerto Rico's Financial Oversight Board for 3 years, I saw up close what happened, who acted, and who did not. I heard local politicians from both parties repeatedly express their gratitude for Trump and the action he took. Let's be clear. When it mattered, President Trump stepped up with meaningful action. Puerto Rico is a beautiful part of America. Its proud American citizens have served our country in every major conflict of the last century. Our fellow Americans who reside in Puerto Rico deserve a leader who has also, or already rather, proven as president that he has the commitment, resolve, and experience to help Puerto Rico grow. That leader is Donald Trump. Let's elect him to finish the job of making America and Puerto Rico great again. That again, Justin Peterson, who served as a member of Puerto Rico's Financial Oversight Board from 2020 to 2023. Now, those are facts. That is reality. While the media, along with the Harris campaign, falsely paint Trump in a lie as blocking aid and only throwing paper towels to people, he did vastly more than previous presidents have done, and what he allocated in order to help rebuild Puerto Rico has all come to a virtual halt under the Biden administration. But why let facts get in the way? You know, because a comedian noted somewhat accurately that there is a trash problem with the country, the island of Puerto Rico. Yes, many of you, when looking at the disinformation campaign being spread about Trump and what he did as president for Puerto Rico, comparing that to what the Biden administration actually did in terms of their complete failure with the fires in Hawaii, which Biden had to be shamed into going. And even then, he tried to take center stage by claiming he understood what those people went through because there was a kitchen fire in his house once, and it almost got to his Corvette. Clearly someone in touch. Wilder RV for all of your RV needs, just north of Springfield, just to get away. That RV can be your escape. The great thing about having an RV is that you find yourself a nice, peaceful campground or an area by the lake. It could be just 10 minutes down the road, but you are worlds away from the everyday annoyances and stresses that can get you down. You're able to take a vacation whenever you want, and it can be, again, just miles down the road, yet it can seem like it's worlds away. And your place for all of your RV needs, whether it be a brand new one that is accommodating for an entire family, yet a monthly price that is in line with or even less than a one-night stay at a hotel. Much more affordable than many people think. And they're just fantastic folks there. You can see pricing, financing available as well. WilderRV.com, also KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. Thought we'd get a glimpse, some of the latest results of the Democrats and the media continuing to convince people or attempt to convince people that Donald Trump is Hitler, a dictator. He's going to imprison political opposition. And while normal people recognize that these are delusional hysterics, unfortunately, there are a lot of delusional people out there who believe it, and so they act on it. 21-year-old Chicago man told police whenever he sees former President Donald Trump, it causes him to become violent. The suspect, Andrew Brierly, accused of breaking windows at the Trump International Hotel and Tower during mental health episodes he suffered this year. Again, these are the people that the Harris campaign are targeting, those with mental health issues, because they know what they'll do. The damage due to this individual reached $145,000. Then, a Pennsylvania man, 74, taken into custody after he was overheard threatening to assassinate Trump a day before his rally at Penn State, declaring that he would, quote, like to shoot the guy, end quote. Paul Gavinosis made the threats while trying to buy a parking pass at the university's Office of Transportation on October 25th, according to a probable cause affidavit obtained by Fox News. Quote, I hate Donald Trump. I'd like to shoot the guy, he allegedly said, making a gun-racking motion with his hands. He allegedly described climbing atop a building, saying that, quote, you can't take a gun into the rally or the students will see it. A witness at the transportation office was alarmed by the comments and that his parking pass would bring him close to the Bryce Jordan Center where Trump was speaking. The witnesses notified Penn State police, and officers with the agency interviewed the 74-year-old along with members of the U.S. Secret Service. He allegedly told police when asked if he believed that he could assassinate the president, saying, probably, yeah. These are the results of the Democrat rhetoric. Kamala Harris taking vapidness to new heights in an interview, being asked by a reporter what she says to voters who are struggling with, the question that voters have when she's like, we need to do this. And they're like, well, why haven't you done it yet? I mean, you're Biden's right-hand guy, right? I mean, you're there the whole time. You've said that, Biden has said not a decision was made without you being part of it. You said you're always the last one to leave the room when these decisions are made. So why haven't you? Her answer, it's not like, again, this is a surprise question. Yet she seems to be surprised every time she's asked. The latest question and answer next. Right, most recent interview, Kamala Harris being asked a question she's been asked numerous times, and that is, hey, these problems you keep talking about, why isn't you and Biden fix these things in the 4 years you've been in there?
I think what voters are struggling with, and we've heard this across the state, is when you discuss your plans, they come back and ask, well, why haven't you done it already?
Well, I'm not president.
You're vice president.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm going to tell you what I'm doing as president when I have the ability then to do what I know based on my experience is a new approach that is about building on the good work that has happened. But there's more to do. There's more to do.
The quote I'm going to tell you what I'm doing as president when I have the ability then to do what I know based on my experience is a new approach. It is about building on the good work that has happened, but there's more to do. There's more to do.
That's clear.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's completely clear as to why. You can't, on one hand, present yourself as someone who's been involved in every decision made, and that's what Biden has continued to back her up on this, that she has been instrumental. And didn't she say at least weekly she even had lunch with Biden? She talked about she's always the last one out of the room. She really was out there kind of bragging, that was her building her resume. This is how important I am. I am very important. And you can understand the political motivation behind doing that. You don't want to seem irrelevant. You need to bolster your credibility, and you do that by attaching yourself to everything that this administration has done. And the favor that was given to her was validating that. The Biden administration saying, or Biden specifically, yes, that's true. Well, then when people ask, well, how come then if you had all that clout, if you had so much sway, if you had so much authority in the decision-making of this administration, why didn't you do any of that stuff? Well, I wasn't president. Really, I hardly did anything at all. I had no power whatsoever. 4 years of this. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.